Hello, hikers. Green Giant here, one of your hosts. This episode was recorded on March 27th before a live internet audience. Live internet audience. You've heard me say this before. What am I talking about? What's that mean? Each week we use a free app called Discord to hold our online hangouts, which we record on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern, and then release as the show you're about to hear. If you ever think you want to listen in live or join in the chat while we record one of these hangouts, the link for that is in the show notes. Everything you need is right there. Okay, this week, before we get to our guest, first a little bit of backstory, a little bit of history, a little bit of terminology. Let's start with the term Triple Crown. This phrase originates here in the U.S., refers to a fairly astounding accomplishment many of our listeners are probably familiar with. We've got 3 long-distance footpaths here in the U.S. There's the AT, it's about 2,100 miles from Maine to Georgia. We've got the PCT, which goes from Canada to Mexico. That's 2,600 miles along the west coast. And finally, the incredibly challenging and often dangerous Continental Divide Trail, or the CDT as it is known. This last one runs mostly along its namesake ridge for about 3,000 miles. Through hiking any one of these trails requires dedication, perseverance, time. Very few people have ever completed all 3. Less than 300 people, in fact, have done this. Our guest tonight, Tyler Lau, is among those 300, rare and true Triple Crowner, as they are known. And as if that's not impressive enough, he's among the even rarer few to have hiked all 3, all 7,800 miles in a single year. How few people have done this? There are only 10 calendar triples, and Tyler, aka the hiking prodigy as he's known on the trail, stands out even among them as the one person of color to have completed a calendar triple. He joins us tonight, but first, Megan is out this week. She'll be back for the next one. Reptar and I are going to talk a little bit about 14ers, hiking in Zion, some sketchy ridges that we've done. After that, Daniel jumps in. We're going to talk a little bit about our most recent hike on the Foothills Trail. All of this and more. Stick around, sit back, relax. This is Stories from the Trail.
Find out where the microphone is. Am I loud and clear?
Oh, yeah, we can hear you. You're fine.
I'm not echoing now.
Yeah, you're good.
I'll shut this door. It might be bouncing off the door a little bit.
How's it going, Reptar? Reptar!
Car hikes.
Life is good, man. Life is good.
Excellent.
How about you, man?
It's an absolutely beautiful day here. From where I'm sitting, I can look out the window and see. I can see the Blue Ridge Parkway, and the birds are chirping. And as the sun sets, especially this time of year, it's really nice. As the sun sets, we can see the shadow of our mountain slowly creeping up the mountain that's across the valley from us. That's always fun to watch.
Well, that just sounds absolutely stunning. You hearing the doves cooing?
Is that what you got going on there?
Yeah, we have some doves that like to hang out on the power line near my house.
I wasn't sure whether or not you had started taking care of carrier pigeons.
No, I'm not that Mike Tyson enough.
I can see you on the top of a building, just feeding the birds and sending out care packages to hikers via carrier pigeon.
See, everybody's talking about having a drone delivery service. I think they got it all wrong. I think you're onto something with this carrier pigeon.
Yeah, they work for peanuts. Is that true? I don't think so. I don't know.
Yeah, so I think tonight, I was talking to Prodigy, and he might be showing up. He said that he's going to try to sneak away from work for 20 minutes or so. So he might be making an appearance tonight. If not, next week. He said he's going to try to get out of work early and hop on.
Okay, that's interesting. And this Prodigy guy has just recently finished Calendar Triple, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he's, one of, only a dozen or so people I think that have actually done it. And he's actually the first person of color to have done it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
And I checked out his Instagram today too, and it looks like, that's part of his profile is hiking to raise awareness for more diversity in the outdoors, which is something that we're a big fan of here on the show.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Well, I think tonight's going to be one of those nights where we talked to about 15 different people and asked them to be on the show, and I think about 3 of them might show up. So, Keith Voskett was last minute cancellation. He had something going on today that kind of wore him out and made him tired. And it is 1:00 in the morning in London, so he's gonna bow out tonight. And Miss Janet actually said she was thinking about joining us tonight, but as you know, cool. as you know, with Miss Janet, she always has about 8 different things on her dance card. So if we get any time from her tonight, that would be, and it's always a pleasure to hear from Miss Janet. Always a surprise too.
Yeah, I think that's one of the tricky parts about, getting the hiking community as guests for the show, because they're all like, I'm outside doing something, so it's hard to wrangle people to get them in front of a microphone.
Yeah, seriously, especially when it's this nice out.
Yeah, the beginning of hiking season.
Hey, I got published today.
Say what now?
I got the Tomahawk newspaper down in Mountain City, picked up all the stories and published it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty
nice.
Cool.
Oh, cool. Congratulations.
Yeah, man. So I got to come up with some more Johnson County people. And once the Bristol Herald sees that, they might start putting some of my stuff too. So anyway, in time, takes time.
All right.
Okay, I'll go to mute.
So, Reptar, do you have your list?
Oh, for Prodigy?
Or the one that I sent you earlier.
Yeah, I do. I'm just basically I've got a few stories in mind, one in particular.
Oh, okay.
So I guess, to explain to people, do you want to explain to people what they're about to hear tonight?
Sure, I'll do that. Since Miss Janet and Hiking Prodigy and all these other people are maybes for tonight, what we're going to do is Reptar and I both have a list that was put together. It was a few things that I thought of. A lot of these suggestions came from Gamera, and it's just basically questions and story prompts. And Reptar and I are going to go through this list and take turns just answering questions and telling random stories. And what we would like to encourage is that if you guys have any questions or things that you want to hear us talk about, use the chat to ask us questions, and we can tell stories about, if you want to hear poop stories, ask for poop stories in the chat. Okay. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Yeah. So the first question, I don't necessarily want to do these in order because they're not really in any kind of an order, but I like the one that's at the top of the list because it's an easy one. And it is, tell us about your most recent hike. What you been up to, man?
Okay. So my most recent hike was 2017 on the Pacific Crest Trail.
Okay, hang on a second. I guess I should clarify with the question. When I say your most recent hike, I mean like any hike at all, whether it was like an overnighter or what have you done lately?
That was my most recent hike.
Are you telling me you haven't had a backpack on your back since 2017?
Hold on, let me think. Oh.
Because if that's the case, I apologize for interrupting, and B, holy shit.
Yeah, no, you know what? I really. Actually, wait, no, that is a bold-faced lie.
Oh, okay, good.
Okay, so in 2018, I did quite a bit of hiking. Actually, I hiked about four, I think, 14ers out in Colorado.
Okay.
And anyone that doesn't know what a 14er is, it's just a mountain that's got a summit of 14,000 feet or higher. So, yeah, I met up with a couple of friends out there, and one of my buddies, Nathan, also known as Puma. He's a really awesome photographer and videographer, so you guys should check him out on Instagram or YouTube. It's Puma Projects on YouTube. And let's see, who else? My another guy that I met from the Appalachian Trail, Greg, also known as my best friend.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, we did a couple 14ers together, and yeah, I would say one of, if not the most terrifying hike of my life was one of those, which was we did, God, not, it was, what was it? Mount Bearstadt to Mount Evans via the Sawtooth route.
Oh, wow.
And yeah.
I don't know what that is. That just sounds awesome.
Okay, so like Mount Evans, you can drive to the top of it. It's like one of the highest roads, I think, in the country. Maybe I could be wrong with that, but yeah, you can drive to the top of this 14er. And Bearstadt is known for being one of the easier 14ers in Colorado. So they're both pretty easily accessible, but if you want to go from one to the other in the same hike, you have to go across this Sawtooth, which I have a video of it on my YouTube. But basically, there's a part where you just get to a little ledge that I would say is probably about, I don't know, 5, maybe 6 feet wide. Okay. And on one side, you have like the wall of a mountain, and on the other side, it's just like 1,000-foot drop. And for those that don't know, I'm extremely terrified of heights. Like, I put myself through it anyway, just because like I love trying to overcome fears. But yeah, like the loose gravel and stuff, the scree, if you will. Oh my gosh, yeah, that. I was actually at one point kind of crab walking along the trail, and it was funny because Puma and this other guy we picked up on the way are sitting there laughing at me because I'm so terrified. And they're just like walking along like it ain't no thing.
Dude, scree can fuck right off.
Oh man, yeah, it was pretty sketchy.
Yeah, say what scree is for the East Coasters. Say what scree is for.
So scree is basically just like loose rock and gravel. So if you're like climbing up the side of a mountain and there's no real trail or anything, it's just kind of loose rock, dirt, sand. Very unstable to hike on, and a lot of people are not fans of it because you can get rock slides and things like that, so it's pretty sketchy.
You can surf it though. You can scree surf if it's if the conditions are right. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, you could.
Like it's a quick. It's not It's definitely not consistent with a leave no trace principle. But if you need to get down the side of a scree slope really fast, you can kind of. Is this weird motion where you're almost like skiing, but without obviously skis. You're kind of like jumping side to side as a controlled fall.
Yeah, it's like if you've ever hiked in sand dunes.
Yeah.
Just like kind of running downhill in the sand almost. But more rocky.
Right. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but in conjunction with that, I forgot I also took a road trip that year and did some hiking in Zion. The buddy that I went with was actually more afraid of heights than I was. And so when we went to go do Angel's Landing, he noped out of that one. And so I actually I didn't even get to make it all the way in just because I didn't want to, just bail on my boy for like an hour and a half. But yeah, Angel's Landing, if anybody's ever been to Zion or looking to do some insane hiking, that is a insane hike. There's basically the trail is, I don't know, again, 4 or 5 feet wide. And all you have to like hang on to basically are these chains that they set up along this really sketchy kind of path. And there's at points you're on this like little sliver of rock, and on both sides of you it's like, no joke, like 1,000-foot drops on either side. It's
wow. That
was probably one, if not the most terrifying hike that I've ever been on. I would say that the Sawtooth over to Evans was equally as scary, if not more so, just because there was no chains to hang on to. It was just like you were exposed. But yeah, so
any comparison at all to like Knife's Edge on Katahdin?
The thing is, I didn't actually do the Knife's Edge.
Not me either.
Yeah, like the way that it panned out that day is like we went up, and I ended up getting up there, I think, I don't know, 45 minutes or so before my hiking partner showed up, and it was just freezing on top of the mountain. So by the time we got up there, tagged the sign, and hung out for a little bit, it was just like, all right, let's just get back down. But I would definitely recommend it if you have the time and aren't freezing your butt off and the weather's good.
I just put a picture in the chat of something called Sacagawea in the Eagle Cap Wilderness in Oregon. And the picture doesn't really do its scale because a person walking on this edge would be just like a tiny little, like a dot. It's probably... Katie, you were there. What do you think it is from where we're standing to, like the other peak is probably about that might be like a half a mile as the crow flies. And we were out there a few years ago with Mark Calcaney, who's on the show quite a bit. And, we were thinking about trying to walk out across that Knife's Edge and get out onto it. A lot of people do. And I wish I had a better picture of it. Maybe I can find one later. But like at the very bottom of the U in that saddle between the two peaks, the trail narrows to the point where it's not a trail at all. It's a knife edge, and it's really freaking steep, as you can see in the picture. And I tried to get out there. I put on gloves and took some water with me, and that was about it. And I think after about 20 minutes, I got to that saddle. Yeah, and there's a series of boulders in the middle that stick out of the Knife's Edge, kind of like the plates on a stegosaurus's back. Mark called them, he called them gendarmes, which is French for pointy rocks. I don't know what it's French for, but it was he kept saying, before I went out there and attempting it, he said, make sure when you get to the gendarmes, go to the left of them. Go to the left. He said, it's going to look like you want to go to the right, but go to the left. Trust me, that's what that's what you're supposed to do. And I got out there, and to the left, he said it would be counterintuitive, but it was kind of terrifying. I thought, okay, I know this is the safer route, but if I go this way, surely I'm not coming back. So it was one of those turnaround moments where, I got there and thought, this is far enough. I turned around and came back, but my goodness, I'm getting sweaty palms just thinking about it.
I'm getting sweaty palms just hearing you talk about it and looking at that picture. Holy crap, man!
Oh man,
yeah, that's
yeah.
Man, me and heights, man. I'm not a big fan.
I've got a picture that Mark had his telephoto lens with us on that trip, and he was he got some kind of zoom shot from a half a mile away that just looks so badass. But in reality, it's me turning around and going, nope. Yeah, my most recent hike was it 2 weekends ago? Weekend before last? Travis and Daniel and I went back to pick up the Foothills Trail where we left off.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, about a year. In fact, it was exactly a year ago to the day we took Daniel on his first overnight hike ever on the Foothills Trail. If you're not familiar, that is a 75-mile footpath that straddles the North Carolina-South Carolina border. So about an hour and a half for each of us, kind of like in the middle of, to drive and meet. And, we planned to do about 30 miles in 3 days, and that's what we did. It was like 29.2. And, we did like one of the middle sections, which is, in terms of elevation, I think the highest point on this hike was just barely over 3,000 feet. We did most of our camping down around, 1,000 or even less, real low. They call it the Foothills Trail for a reason. But it still had quite a few steep climbs. 500 feet over half a mile or so was not uncommon. And then, we walked around the circumference, not really circumference because that would imply that it was round, but, the fingers of a lake, kept us busy for miles just walking along the lake shore. And there are a lot of places on this trail where people will get their resupply by boat. We were not long enough.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. We weren't out long enough to need that, but, it was just a really beautiful, the weather was perfect. We all had a great time. Day 3 was a little tiring. It's been a long time since I've hiked more than just a day hike or an overnight. And somewhere around mile 25, I started really, really getting tired. We were only like 5 miles from the car, but, I'd eaten through all of my food. My leg muscles were like, nope, you're done. 3 days of this with no break. I was ready for a 0. And, but it was still a good time. It was a good time. We had a lot of fun hanging out together and camping, and, Daniel did all right too.
Hell yeah, man. That sounds like an awesome first little jaunt out.
Yeah, it was a good time. Last time.
Yeah, but he was depressed when it was all over. You're like, okay, we're done. And I didn't want it to end.
Oh, hi, Daniel.
Oh, hi. I figured I'd jump in since y'all were talking about 2 weeks ago.
We were talking about you.
Yeah, I heard.
Yeah, how were your legs the day after?
Oh, it was rough. On that last day, all I could think of is, I'm going to the chiropractor. I'm going to get a massage. But once I got in the zone, it was pretty cool. It was really fun. It's funny. Gary was hurting, like you were saying, and me and Travis walked ahead of him, and we were waiting up at this observation deck to look at these falls, and we're waiting and waiting. And I'm telling Travis, I think the parking lot's up there. I think there's a bathroom because I didn't go to the bathroom that weekend. And he's like, oh, no, we should wait for Gary. And I was just sitting there. And fuck it. Hey, I'm going to the bathroom. So, So I spent 20 minutes in the bathroom and it felt awesome. And I went back and I guess Travis got in touch with you or whatever, but we went back down and we saw where the trail diverted off and we weren't even supposed to go up those stairs. But yeah, we caught up. Well, he caught up with Gary later on and they were pretty much just waiting for me. And I was carrying a bladder in my my backpack, and I could never. The bad thing about a bladder is you never know when you're getting low. And then I was drinking, and then nothing. I'm like, oh shit! Well, there's water everywhere, so filled up a couple times. It's funny. I had this thing going where I had this knock bag that was connected to my Sawyer, and so I'd get the water from a stream or whatever, attach it to the Sawyer, there's this disconnect thing that would go into my bladder, and I would just hold up my trekking pole up in the air, and I tied it to the knock water bladder, so it was like a gravity feed as I walked, and so I thought that was kind of a pretty cool hiking hack that I was doing. So I did that, and I was kind of I've never been on this. I don't know how many more miles. I only saw one guy with his dog, which I had a fucking piece of salami in my pocket, and I'm like, look, buddy, these people ain't coming. These people ain't coming, or these dogs ain't coming to you I've got a fucking piece of salami in my pocket, and I got these dogs just coming after me. I'm like,
I remember that guy.
control your dogs. And we talked about that later. But anyway, so I got the water, and I filtered it out and everything. And then I'd say about maybe a mile before they were waiting for me, I was filtering more water because I was like, it seems like I should be there, but I don't want to take any chances. And so I filled up the water again, and I was doing the whole, holding the trekking pole up, doing the whole gravity feed. And then I see these two people walk, and I'm like, hey, you know where the parking lot is? They're like, oh, it's like a fourth a mile. And I'm like, oh, so this is kind of pointless. And so I dumped out all the water and just continued to walk. And we got to the parking lot where we had a car, and it was kind of depressing. Like when it was done, I know Gary was done for it, but
not depressing because
I wanted to keep it going.
Yeah, I was going to say not depressing because you had a bad time, but like you actually
no, depressing because it's like I mean I know how everyone goes their separate ways, but it's like that first night, that first Friday, Gary didn't really talk about this, but the first Friday we were taking this big. It wasn't the trail. It was a trail to get to the trail.
It was
I forgot
a spur.
What the trail was.
Yeah, Blue Blaze.
It was a. I mean, you could drive a car on this trail. It was so long, and so we're going. I got there late. I was stuck in like an hour and a half of traffic, and I was pulling my hair out trying to get up there. But anyway, so we hike about five miles. We started about 3:30, 4 o'clock. We hike about 5 miles to this camping area. It is the nicest camping area I've ever seen in my life as far as primitive camping. It had spots for the tents. It had picnic tables. It had a
burn barrels.
A grill.
Yeah.
We made a fire, and we sat around all night long, and the moon was big as hell, and we just sat out all night long, just hanging out and talking and listening to music. And I'm like, oh my God, I love this. But then Saturday, we're like, okay, we're not staying up till 11 anymore because
can I interject real quick? Can I interject real quick?
I'm sorry.
No, and I want you to keep going, but I want to set the scene just a little bit. That trail that we took to get to that first campsite is called the Canebrake Trail, and it follows the I'm gonna have to look at the name of the river, but it follows the river that turns into Lake Jocassee. So for 5 miles, we're walking downhill by this whitewater river that has, 10 and 12 foot unnamed drops with just like big foamy, you could stand out, and then right beneath them would be calm pools where people could stand in hip waders and catch trout or whatever. Just this beautiful whitewater river. And at the point where the trail or where the river intersects with the lake, they've brought in all of these picnic tables and camping facilities via boat so that, it's boat up camping. And we're doing this in the second week of March. So, it's not really even spring yet. So we've got the whole place to ourselves. So, go ahead, Daniel.
So, so we were at the campground just hanging out, cooking our food. We went on this bridge that crossed the river, and we were just looking at all those stars, and the moon was like, you didn't even need a headlamp almost. The moon was so big. And I decided I'm not going to use any of my gas because, I bought a pocket rocket or whatever. I'm not going to use any of my gas. I'll just use, the fire as intended. And so, it took a while, but I'm like, why use it? Why use gas if you don't have to? And I'm thinking the next time I go out, I'm not even going to bring my pocket rocket. I'm like, I'll bring some gas and I'll use one of theirs because I kind of find it silly to bring they both had jet boils and I had a pocket rocket. I'm like, well, what's the point in that? I mean, I don't know. I feel like I'm drifting to the ultralight option. I mean, not crazy ultralight, but I just like to strategize what will make me feel better, what will get me going longer, what makes sense. But I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about, if you're in a group of people, bring some gas. And on the point of gas, I think it was the second day. We're walking, and they always have this thing that says the trail provides. I found some gas. It was just at this campsite, and it was enough to cook my food for that night and the breakfast the next day. So I'm like, wow, hell, I bought this big old thing of gas and I didn't even need it. And so that was pretty cool. But like, it's really cool. Like, like Gary said, I'm new to this, and it's really cool to try to figure out what works for you and what you like and what you don't like. And it's really cool to kind of personalize your experience. And another thing, I'm talking a lot, sorry.
No, good.
Another thing,
we love it.
Another thing I was thinking about how everyone loves to talk about gear. They're like, what is the best gear? What is the best gear? I think that, instead of what's the best, what do you need? Are you doing the AT? Are you doing the PCT? Are you doing the CDT? Or are you, camping maybe 3 times a year? You don't need a $500 tent, best top of the line, whatever, bag, whatever, if you're only going to do it 3 or 4 times a year. And the thing about it is most of the people in this community are like that. They only do it 3 or 4 times a year. And I feel like there's a kind of a pressure on people to get, you got to get really good gear, because if you don't get good gear, you're just going to buy cheap gear and throw it away. I think there's a happy medium, and I don't think that that's addressed enough as it should be. It's either this gear is shit or this is the top of the line. This is what you need. I believe there's a middle ground, and I want to try to find that middle ground. So, I mean,
you want to find
pretty
something
much just my journey.
That's that's firmly in the middle, like extra medium.
Yeah. I feel like that's what most people want, because, I think the night we did that gear talk, this is the best, this is the highest rated, but you're like, yeah, but I don't want to spend hundreds of dollars on this. Because like when I first started this thing, me and Gary, we talked at REI and we did a little show, and I don't remember saying it. I don't know if it came out on the podcast, but I was like, what? $50 for this, $100 for this? Oh my God, $20 for underwear? Are you kidding me? I'm the kind of guy that gets all his hiking stuff from Goodwill. I mean, I go there every single weekend, but I get everything I hike in pretty much I get from Goodwill. But I don't know. I just like to see a happy medium, and it's really hard to find it. But anyway, yeah, I really had a lot of fun next weekend, or a couple weekends ago. But like, I was a little depressed at the end, because I was.
Well, you know what the best cure for that is, don't you?
More hiking.
More hiking, exactly.
Well, actually, it's funny. You know what I did when I came back? I bought the actual guidebooks for the Bartram Trail, and I've been looking at those. So once we get done with the foothills, I have plans for other things.
We talked about that while we were on the Foothills Trail together.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I really like, hanging out with people. I mean, hiking is great and everything, but I'm an extrovert. I'm an extreme extrovert, and I like talking to people. And
I can tell. Yeah.
Let me go to my notes.
So hang on. So while you're looking at your notes, I've been kind of following the action in the chat here, and Hiking Prodigy has joined us. He is in the blanket fort with us right now, but it seems like he's having technical difficulties.
Okay.
Not sure if he can't hear, can't talk, or what are we trying to fix here? Probably all of the above.
I hear Hiking Prodigy coming in and out.
Super quiet, but I heard something.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. Yes. Hold on. Can we get it a little bit louder?
So, am I good?
Yeah. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, man? Let everybody know who you are, trail name, all that good stuff, where you're from.
My name is, I guess, real name Tyler Lau. Trail name is the Prodigy. From Hong Kong and the States. Most recently hiked the calendar year Triple Crown, becoming the 10th person overall to do it and first person of color to do it.
Woohoo! Hell yeah, man! Congrats on that. So, what compelled you to hike the calendar year triple? Because I mean, just one long trail is a massive feat to most people, but you're just like, nah, I'm just gonna do all three.
Yeah, it's kind of a multi-factor reasoning, I guess, or I'm just a little crazy. But one of the reasons was I met Legend in 2016, and he kind of planted the seed because I was hiking the PCT for the first time that year, and I met him on his second leg of his calendar year Triple Crown. And it kind of always stuck in the back of my head. And finally, all came to fruition last year. But part of it was just wanting to test myself, see if it was even possible. Another part was, I mentioned that I'm the first person of color to do it. And that's very important to me because I've worked in the outdoors, I recreate a lot. And a lot of places I've been, it's still not very diverse. And that's no fault of any, single group or person. I just wanted to make that issue more apparent to people. I think a lot of us, we get stuck in the romanticized vision of being outside, and that's fine. But, there is a reality that other people experience when they're outdoors, and not having access to the outdoors was something I care about a lot. So I wanted to bring more attention to that. So I did a fundraiser for the hike called 8,000 Miles, 8,000 Smiles, where I was trying to raise $8,000 to help fund opportunities for youth and underprivileged communities to get outside and feel welcome. And the third reason was my cousin is recovering from a coma, and I saw him before I started the hike, and I couldn't physically do anything for him. So I figured I could raise money for his recovery efforts. So part of the money that we fundraised thus far will go to his recovery efforts because he still can't walk or talk. He's awake now, which is good, but it's one of those things where it's heart-wrenching to see someone struggle.
Wow, man, that is definitely like a very noble cause, man. My hat's off to you all around for that one, brother.
Yeah, I was going to say,
thank you.
When people talk about long hikes, whether it's just through hiking one long trail or even a triple crown, they always say ultralight. You want to carry the least amount possible, but it sounds like you're carrying a lot more than just physical weight on your triple crown.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you've discussed this on this podcast and other folks have too. I think the mental side of long distance hiking is the hardest part for a lot of people because you don't see it. You don't expect it, especially if it's your first hike. You're just thinking, oh, I got to crank out miles to finish this trail in this time window that I have before the weather hits. But personally, for me, I think it's the mental struggle and how you overcome that really helps define your hike.
You ever practice any endurance sports other than hiking?
I mean, I ran cross country in high school, but that was high school. I won't say my age on air, but it's I mean, as far as long distance hiking, the first big hike I ever did was the PCT in 2016. And I mean, day one, I realized I'd made a mistake right away by choosing the wrong shoes. So a blessing in disguise because I discovered, the shoes I wear pretty much here on out is I personally wear ultras. I'm not that's not a plug or anything. It's just how my feet work. And for people that do wear them, they understand the wide toe box is important when you're walking so many miles a day because your feet do swell as you hike. And some people's foot sizes grow and stay that way after the hike. So, but as far as sports, I mean, I love being outside. So rock climbing, skiing, snowboarding, all that stuff. But I hadn't done anything quite like a full long distance hike up to the PCT in 2016.
All right, so I've got a question about the logistical aspect of it. So, what day did you start your hike, and what trails did you do in what order, and how long did each trail take, and when did you finish?
Yeah, so I did it a little unconventionally in the sense that they weren't straight through hikes. As you know, I think a lot of people think of a through hike as point A to point B. That's a topic for another podcast. I know some people get really heated about that, but I got hurt actually when I started training for it in March of last year, around this time actually, and actually couldn't bear any weight on either foot. I was afraid I wasn't even going to be able to attempt it. But I did a test hike after 2 weeks off with no physical activity. April 2nd was the date of my test hike on the PCT, and I did about 160 to 180 miles. And I was sore and hurting, but did my first 40-mile day after not doing anything for 2 weeks. So I felt like, okay, if I can do that hurt, I should be able to at least give this a go. So I started on the CDT April 27th, did about 500 miles with my friends, the Graduate and T-Rex, and then we all went back to the PCT, did the PCT, but that section I did the test hike, I decided to skip that and skip ahead to where I'd stopped, and decided I was going to use that as my start date because I didn't see a point in doing it again. And it timed out to where my family from Hong Kong was flying over, so I had at least a day or two to see them. I didn't want to miss my nephew's first birthday. But, you know, just to cover all bases here, because some people are very purist in their mentality. But, you know, we say hike your own hike for a reason. But I finished the PCT July 24th. So I think in total, 82 days of hiking. And then got to the CDT again.
Wow.
And started July 27th. I finished that September 28th at the point I stopped initially in New Mexico when I was going northbound. So I finished the hike southbound and finished in Cuba, New Mexico. And I did that in about 75 days. And then flew to Maine, and anybody that goes Sobo, I mean, even folks that finish Novo know how hard it is to figure out transit in Maine sometimes. So that took a little bit of, like at least a full day and a half of just trying to figure out how to get to Katahdin. And I started October 1st, summited Katahdin, and finished December 29th. Of 2018. So altogether, let's just say April 2nd to December 29th. So about 270-ish days.
Jesus, man, you were moving. So what does that equate to? Like, not even including like travel time. What does that equate to in mileage per day?
You know,
roughly.
I did a numbers post a while back, and I forgot to calculate that. So if someone has a calculator right now and wants to do it, they are more than welcome to. I plan on updating it again soon with another numbers post, but in my head, quite do the math right now. I guess it's got to be 30 something, but I don't know what.
So what would be a fourth long trail that you could tack on to the end, and then do it again next year, but call it the calendar quadruple?
You know, I had a friend
plenty of time,
in 2016. His name's Blue. He just finished his double of hiking the New Zealand Trail and then biking all of New Zealand. So he tried to convince me to go to New Zealand right after the AT and like just do a quadruple crown. I was like, let's see how mentally drained I'm at, and then if I have any funds left in my bank account.
Yeah, man.
I mean, there's the thought of, you know, Legend, again, he did the Great Western Loop last year. There's a thought of like doing a Great Western Loop and then the AT or like the Eastern Continental Divide Trail, which I'm sure someone will try at some point. But there's definitely trails you can tack on. It's just, you know, it's timing, it's weather, it's, you know, your health, both mentally and physically, it's logistics. And I mean, you have to get lucky too. And that was a big part of my trail experience out west was I can count on one hand how many times I had bad weather on the PCT and CDT combined.
What's
Wow.
your
On
definition of
one
bad
or two
weather?
hands, how many times I had good weather on the AT.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So, and for folks that hiked last year, they know, or maybe they don't, but I heard from the ATC when I got to Harper's Ferry, last year was the wettest year on record across the entire Appalachian Trail by at least 25% across every state.
And did the AT have a lower completion rate last year as well?
I think it was the lowest in a long time. And the folks I was running into in the 100-mile wilderness, they were saying a lot of people dropped out, went down south because of the weather. So I don't have the exact numbers, but I believe the ATC just posted that recently.
So in terms of logistics, how did you find time to take that much time off? Like, how are you able to take so much time off to do it?
Yeah, that's one of the big questions people ask. Like, are you sponsored? Are you like some closet millionaire? And I have to say no to both of those.
For now,
work seasonally mostly, so it's tough to find time to hike if I'm not working, or if I'm working. So hiking season is working season. My background is actually trail work, conservation work, wildland fire. So I do stuff outdoors, and I worked on the PCT in 2017, which is when I met you, Reptar. But I just decided I'm not going to work. I was actually going back to school and, dropped out of classes 2 days in because I made the decision I was going to go hike. So I'd saved up, every penny I could the year before, knowing there was a chance I was going to do something last year, but I wasn't 100% sure it was going to be a calendar year Triple Crown. There was a thought of doing the AT and the CDT to finish my Triple Crown, but then a conversation with my friends, the Graduate and T-Rex, who I mentioned earlier, and to clarify, they finished their calendar year Triple Crown a few days before I did, becoming the first couple to do it. And, we got talking, and just I made the commitment, like, you know what? I've saved just enough, I think, of what I can budget, and we'll see how it works. I picked up a few extra part-time gigs before the start. Just tried to save every penny, tried to get as many deals as I could on gear, buying my shoes in bulk. Yeah, so, it's not typical, but I do feel like a lot of people, especially if they're doing one hike, always ask, like, well, how do you do it? You got to take a chance. There's pros and cons. How much are you willing to sacrifice? I can't speak for, people that are about to start, but for me, I was willing to sacrifice a year of work and use everything I'd saved to try to accomplish this goal because it was really important to me.
Yeah, man, I totally feel that. So another question, to kind of segue into it is, talking about working and stuff, how much did it cost you to do a calendar year triple?
Yeah, so I did the numbers post I mentioned earlier on Instagram and Facebook, and I calculated it to roughly, give or take a few $100s, $16,000 and $500. Right. So yeah, that's it. It's not, easy money to come by for a lot of people by any means, but I'm pretty frugal in general. So I try to save as much as I can every season and set some money aside as kind of like, my safety net. And, I pulled from that, and I was lucky to be pretty much full time in 2017. So, that helped as well. But I would say right now, now that I'm actually on break and going a little over my break at work right now at this new job I started, it's, I'm trying to re-up my war chest per se, because it's quite low. But, every penny, was so helpful last year. I think budgeting for long distance hikes can stress a lot of people out. It's just, I had already gone through that the first time I'd done the PCT and kind of knew what I was capable of. how comfortable I'd be, saving here or maybe not spending the night in town here, but also having more this time to where, like, if the weather was bad, which it was a lot on the AT, like, I'm going to spend the night in town and hike that extra 10 miles because I'm sick of being wet and muddy and cold and my shoes freezing. So that's not me complaining, of course, but
No.
It's one of those things where a perfect example on the PCT in 2016, I would usually go for the most bang for your buck at a restaurant in town. This time I wasn't afraid to be like, hey, I want 2 of your biggest meals and the milkshake. Yeah. And I want another meal to go because I needed the calories. So, and also, again, I had a bigger budget. So,
did you find that one trail was more expensive than the others?
I think I did the calculations. I spent roughly about the same. I think it evens out a little bit with the Western trails, like the CDT and the PCT over the AT, because in the AT, you hit towns a lot faster, so it's easy to spend more. Whereas on the PCT and CDT, you don't spend as much per day, but when you get to town, you're willing to spend more. So it kind of evens out. Like, you carry more food and, you have longer resupplies, but when you get to town, it's like, hey, I'm eating 3 meals here.
It is on.
Whereas on the AT, you can kind of like decide, oh, maybe I'll just get a meal here, and then there's a gas station like 9 miles ahead, and I'll decide to skip it. So it really, there's certain states that are more expensive. I can say right now, like, I don't know if I want to say them on air, but people know, like, Colorado on the CDT is the most expensive, but you get some of the best food, organic food you can find. I'm trying to think, like, the AT, Virginia was pretty pricey.
Yeah, up north was, for sure.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. PCT, California's sales tax, but I'm used to it because I live in California, so I don't really ever think about it. So it's nice when you get to Oregon, which I'm sure you guys know is, oh, there's no sales tax. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. So in terms of, loading up, did you just resupply in towns when you got there, or did you have care packages waiting for you? How'd you go about the whole resupply situation?
Yeah, it was a mixture of both. I think out on the PCT, I was so familiar with the trail. I knew the places I would send resupplies, mostly Oregon and Washington, just because it's mostly resorts and like RV parks you run into unless you get a good hitch in town. So, but as far as things close to trail, kind of like Snoqualmie Pass and Stevens Pass, all the resorts up north, I sent stuff to those places, but also, bought hot food at the restaurants. Same thing with the CDT. It's a little harder with some of the smaller towns you get to. It's really hard to get everything you need. So sending stuff. Mostly, I would send a lot of, bars and snacks and stuff when I sent my shoes, when I needed new shoes, which I'm sure you'll ask me in a second, pairs I went through. But on the AT, there were a few places I sent some things just because a lot of stuff was closed by the time I got there. All the, what do you call those in Shenandoah? The
waysides.
Yeah, the waysides. Everything was closed in Shenandoah. So that was kind of rough. But I got lucky because I have a friend that works at the park there, so he got me.
Have you ever experienced the raspberry and blackberry milkshakes they have there during the summer when they're open?
Oh my God, those are so good.
That sounds amazing, but my experience was frozen water bottles, closed road, ice storm.
Whew.
Yeah, a little different. One day I would love to go back and
totally
have
worth
a good experience on the AT, but right now I would say my preference are the trails out west.
I can't imagine why.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd totally feel you on the weather aspect of things out west, especially because I think, the year I hiked, minus like the record snowfall prior to us setting out. I think I could count on, like you said, one hand how many times it rained. That wasn't until I got up into Washington, Oregon, and it kind of started dumping on me there for a little bit. But yeah, overall, I think it was, no more than maybe 10 to 15 times. Whereas on the Appalachian Trail, I remember there was like a stretch of like 21 days straight where it was some sort of rain.
Yep. Yeah, that happened a lot last year. I talked to one northbounder who said they got rained on 30 days straight. Cool.
Oof.
You're really
No
selling this
way.
trail for me.
I know, right? Well, I think a lot of people probably go into it thinking like, oh yeah, it'll rain for like a little while, but then you'll dry out, not realizing that, no, there's a chance that you're just going to be hiking for a month straight in the rain.
Yeah, that year they didn't call each other Nobos and Sobos. It was upstream or downstream.
That's a good one. I wonder if people started that last year at some point because, I mean, all the early snowstorms too. I was just like, if I wanted snow, I'd go back to Colorado.
So the long trails, or at least two of the three here in the U.S., are famous for being really social experiences. The AT in particular. Did you find that being on a mission or having sort of a ticking clock had any impact on your social experience?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to, tell people as much as I can, what I did is not typical. And because I started so late, I had to do higher miles, which meant not being able to enjoy what a typical, 1 through hike season would be. So I didn't get to camp in all the spots I wanted to camp at. I didn't get to jump in the lakes and rivers all the time. And I didn't get to spend time in towns as much as I wanted to, though I tried to plan it to where I was staying in towns if I with the miles. And then meeting people, it was tough sometimes where, you want to have a conversation with them because you haven't seen anybody in a while, but you also have 18 more miles to go and they're setting up camp. You're like, okay, well, maybe I'll see you, knowing full well I'm probably not going to see you again this hike. But it was a good way to like reconnect with some folks that like I met Kashmir, who ended up picking me up when I finished on Springer. I met her on the CDT, and we had actually kind of crossed paths on the PCT in 2016, but hadn't talked to each other. But I was like, hey, I recognize you, and got in touch and, kept in touch. And then, she actually came out. She was the one that saw me finish. So, there's moments and people like that, but I didn't get a chance to talk to everybody, which, sometimes you don't want to talk to everybody, and that's no offense to anybody out there. But as you and your listeners know, you don't always go in the wilderness or hike in the woods to be social. You want to find peace, or you're looking for something own life. So that finding that balance for everybody is different. I think there were definitely moments like on the AT, I wish I had someone to talk to other than myself. But as is the case, most people wouldn't be hiking at that time of year, which is, the same thing to do. And it definitely was rough at points, but I also realized what I set out to do, like, this was one of the cons, and I knew that going in was not going to have.
Where were you when the fall colors were at their peak?
I was actually in New England, so it was awesome until what was it, Hurricane Florence came through. That was not good.
Yeah.
Because I was in the whites, so.
Oh man.
Yeah. So yeah, I got to see the fall colors, but I also was cold and wet the whole time.
So wait. Were you actually hiking out in the hurricane in the whites?
No, so I got to Gorham, and that's when the storm was coming in, and we're like, okay, maybe I'll wait it out. And I had just gotten hurt, actually, literally right after the border of Maine and New Hampshire. I had a quad strain. I was worried it was a tear. So I was like, okay, I'll take a day or two off in Gorham, kind of see how this storm goes through. And then they're calling for gusts of 115 to 135 miles per hour around Washington. And I was like, you know what? I'm good. I don't want to die to say I finished this. So I decided to walk the road around. So for the purists, I'm not apologizing to you, but I am explaining my footsteps went around Washington as opposed to up and over during a hurricane.
Yeah, man. And anybody that wants to give you any flack for that can kiss some ass, because I did Mount Washington on a relatively nice day. Like, it was, I think, 70 or 60 degrees at the base, but up top it was freezing rain with gusts of 90 miles an hour winds. So I can't even fathom, how it would be on a not good day. So yeah, way to be smart about that one.
Yeah, the crew I was with decided that we were going to do Mount Washington by coming up an alternate path called Tuckerman's Ravine, which is, I don't know why the hell we did this. It's noted for being the steepest trail in the Whites in terms of elevation gain per mile. So you basically come up the backside of Mount Washington, just for the added, it was one of those things where, like, we've been on the AT for months. Let's try something different for a change,
Sounds like the Wildcat 2.0.
Yeah.
Yeah, I lived in New Hampshire in 2012, so I've summited Washington 3 times, and I've done Tuckerman's, I've done Boot Spur, and I've done Lion's Head. So I know what all those trails are like. It's just I always did them on relatively nice days in the summer and fall, as opposed to winter, hurricane gusts plus Washington weather combined. That's, they have those signs up there because it is the most deadliest places to in a storm.
I was just watching some like backwoods law or something like that, and they just like rescued some people off of Mount Washington, and I was like, oh, that's how it happens, because like you go up to Mount Washington and you, like you said, you see the list of people that have died climbing up there, and part of you just like, I mean, it's pretty obvious how it would happen, but I mean, it's people just need to use common sense when they go up there. Like, Mount Washington is no joke, especially in bad weather.
Yeah, and that's something for everybody on every trail. There's going to be places and moments on your hikes where you really have to find yourself in that moment and remind yourself what you're doing, how you're doing it, is it worth it? Like, you did 2017 in the Sierras. There were moments, I'm sure, for everybody that went through the Sierras early season where it's like, is this worth it? Do I want to put myself in danger to get across this creek, which has become a river? And it'll probably be the same this year with the amount of snow the Sierras have gotten. That's one big thing for me as someone that has done wilderness medicine too, is don't put yourself in danger just to say you did something. Because if you put yourself in danger, you put other people in precarious situations. And, if someone decides to go in after you and they don't have the training, now you have 2 victims or 2 patients. And that's something that's big for me, is just education and awareness when you're in the outdoors. Like, don't let the social media side of things like skew what the outdoors is. And, I say that as someone that is on social media as well, and you guys are as well, but I'm not out there to glamorize what it is. Like, all the photos of people standing over mountaintops and all their clothes are nice and their gear is super clean. I'm like, that's not what you're going to get out there. It's very different.
That doesn't exist.
It's different because you earn it. And no offense to the influencers that are doing that. I understand why they're doing it, but don't give this false impression that it's so easy in these places. And, people pass away, unfortunately. In 2017, people died trying to cross the rivers.
Yeah, man.
It's not easy. It's just because it's hiking every day and you can walk 30 miles a day. One slip, one fall, one misstep, currents are strong. Not every rock that you step on is going to be set.
Yeah, I think when we were hiking through part of the Sierra, we got to town and found out that Strawberry had got swept down river like 2 days before we had crossed the river. And, hearing something like that while you're out there, oh my gosh, it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's real. It's real life. That's what it is. And again, to caution people, I'm not out to fear monger like some people are online. Just be safe and be conscious of where you are.
Yeah, that's rule number one of the leave no trace principles is plan ahead, right?
Yeah, plan and prepare ahead. And that, I guess, to go into that just a little bit, not too far off topic, but I think a lot of people also get their schedules and their plans set in stone beforehand. Like, this is how I want to do it. This is where I want to be. This is how I'm going to get point A to point B. Be flexible and be open-minded, because you're going to have to adapt to changing situations out there. It's not going to be the exact hike you planned on your Microsoft Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, for sure. And, hearing about the, another record snowpack year. I mean, I'm past the Sierra where I'm getting back on this year, but, it's still up there above 10,000, I think. So I'm definitely a little antsy about that. And, like you said, you might go in with a plan that it's going to be one thing, but, you kind of have to get there and be in it to actually make a safe and wise decision.
Yeah. And again, this isn't to scare anybody. It's just, it's real life. It's not one of those motivational posters you see at the dentist's office.
I mean, it is sometimes. Sometimes.
You're right. You're right. Sometimes you got to take that photo.
Yeah.
Hopefully you have someone else there and you're not trying to set it on.
I've had a few good days.
The cliff. Not that that's ever happened.
They're real. I have two more questions. During the course of your calendar triple, is there a time that stands out in your memory when a stranger was kind to you?
Oh man, I mean, there were so many. The people. That's something we talk about a lot. Is the people make the hike, at least a big part of the hike. And there are a lot of times when even the very completion of your hike, or even a leg of it in your case, depends on a chance encounter with we call them trail angels. Someone who showed up at the right time in the right place with a cheeseburger, very different from someone who shows up at the right time in the right place with like a ride to the doctor or, a place to stay. It comes in varying degrees. I'm sure you had a few. Is there, maybe one or one in particular? Oh man. Gosh, there were a few on the AT that really came through when I needed it the most, because I was contemplating quitting or stopping the hike because I was mentally drained. Wasn't having fun, and I didn't want that to skew my love for hiking for the rest of my life. I think of even like staying at the Lodge of Legends in Gatlinburg. Like I'd just gotten into the Smokies and was feeling better, but it was still like, oh god, this weather. And they stayed open. They had just started taking folks in last year, and was able to stay there and then keep going. Like it was a way for me to regroup. And to anybody that's staying there right now or will be, I highly recommend it. Conductor Red and her amazing. Yeah, stuff like that, or just the people that would drive by. There was a guy in Wyoming. We did a 40-mile road walk out of town, and which is brutal. And he saw me, because some of the water sources on the CDT, you'll find out when you do it, aren't your beautiful flowing creeks and springs. There's a lot of cows. We'll put it that way. And if you don't know what cows do, just like humans, don't use the toilet. So Yeah, he stopped and was like, "Hey, you need some water?" I'm like, "Yes, I do actually." Let me had like a 24 pack of water bottles in the back. Let me fill my water bottles up, and then he's like, "Before you leave, you gotta take one of these with you. Every man after a long day does good beer." Uh, and
Yes.
I don't drink that much, but I was just like, "Yeah, you know what? You're right. Kind of, I'm gonna say no to you." At this point, and yeah, you had ice cold Budweiser, which consumed. It was one of
It's
those things that, like,
calories.
yeah, it's calories. It's the end of the day, and it was a road walk of all things. So it's like, yeah, you know what? You're right. I don't disagree. Other than when he said man, I was like, you mean man, men and women in my head, but I didn't call him out in the spot. I was like, he's giving me water. I'm not gonna say that to his face, but yeah, stuff like that. It's just you never know when it's gonna come.
That's trail magic.
I I'd totally feel you on that one because there was like a crew of us hiking the kind of aqueduct Mojave stretch that I think it's like 30 miles before you hit the next water, and we were night hiking it, and there's a road that basically takes you through it. It's kind of, and when I say road, I mean it's like a dirt road, as I'm sure you know, Prodigy. Um, and we were out there, I think it was probably about 10 o'clock at night, and a truck just appears out of nowhere. And we're all like, what the hell is somebody doing out here at 10 o'clock at night, in the middle of nowhere? And he pulls up and he's like, hey, you guys want some water? And we're like, yeah. And just like you said, he gave us all some bottles of water. And then he also had a cooler with ice cold beer in it and gave us all a beer too. So, it's those random times, I think, not just people setting up shop on the side of the road and handing it out to everybody, but just those random trail angels that,
I think
make
the fact that
so amazing.
we each seem to have some version of that story is one of the things that brings the hiking community together. It's kind of they talk about that shared human experience. That's the shared hiker experience right there. Everybody's had that mysterious beer appear out of nowhere at the end of a hot, miserable day. It's just, yeah, that's just part of it. I love it.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I got one more question for Prodigy from somebody on Instagram. What was your foot/leg maintenance like?
Yeah, that is a very important thing when you're out outdoors and doing these hikes, especially is hygiene. It was tough in New Mexico because you didn't have water sources you could really camp nearby, so you kind of had to ration water. But I did my best to air out my feet any break I had. Take my shoes off, take my socks off, and wipe the dirt and sand away as best I could with my handkerchief. And for me, my feet were killing me in the beginning because I'd mentioned before I was injured before I started. So I was applying this arnica salve that my friend makes. She's based out of Bozeman, Montana. It's called Wild Soul Medicine, and it literally saved me, I think, because I also don't like popping pills, and maybe I shouldn't phrase it like that. I don't take vitamin I as much as everybody else. I actually don't take it at all. I just choose not to do it. I try to go as natural as I can.
That's ibuprofen for anybody that doesn't know what vitamin I is. I'm thinking.
Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, not everybody listening is probably using it that way as far as like saying it. But sorry, it was foot and leg maintenance. Was that what it was?
Yeah, foot and leg.
Yeah, making sure I was stretching at every break was really key for me. I will say that kind of stopped happening halfway through the CDT, but given the mileage I was doing, making sure I was stretching before I went to bed, before I ate dinner, waking up. That was really important, again, in the beginning. But I think as I got to the AT, it was less about keeping my feet clean as opposed to as dry as I could, which was really hard when it was snowing. Absolutely no way you can dry. And I mean, there was 1 or 2 times I had wet wipes that I grabbed from a hiker box, but I also try not to use those too because it's just more trash for me to carry. Really try not to carry a lot. But that's all, some people, they choose to do it, and that's fine so long as you're packing it out. So yeah, just have a routine, depending on who you are. But as far as me, just try to air out my feet as much as I can. My socks, let them sit in the sun for a bit, let the odors kind of dissipate. UV rays are great for disinfecting. So yeah, nothing crazy other than the arnica salve that I'm using a lot.
So I have one final question, and this is starting to become one of those questions that we ask everybody who's finished.
I know where this is going.
No, actually, you don't. But maybe.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, maybe you should ask. Maybe you. I know what you're thinking, and now that I think of it, we actually have two more questions. I'm going to ask one.
Well, actually, I actually have one more than that, but. All right, we'll wrap it up.
Okay, and this is a real question, and it should be a quick one. What is what do you wish you had known before taking on the calendar triple?
Yeah. Nothing like crazy stands out in my head right now, but there's definitely, I think the mental grind of it is amplified. And I think had I known what I was going to go through on the AT, I don't know if I could have changed anything other than starting earlier. I guess that's something I've thought about is,
okay,
had I not started in late April, could I have finished before the weather got really bad on? But then again, I've mentioned before, it was the wettest year on record, so I was going to get some sort of bad weather. Yeah, nothing profound right now.
Okay.
Let me get back. So.
All right. Well,
yeah, everyone in the chat room thought we were going to ask a question about poop. Everyone says it's going to be a poop question.
Oh, go for it.
No, I don't know. That's just what they were predicting. They were wrong.
Well, but before we do that, I just want to make sure that we get this in before you absolutely have to go. But in terms of, people looking to help with organizations, like you did, helping the diversity on trail, what recommendations do you have for people to, whether it be donate or help out with, volunteer with, in terms of doing that? And also, could you, share your social media stuff so people could follow along with whatever you're doing?
Yeah, definitely. I think one big thing for me, because I experienced some pushback when I was talking about these issues with other folks, is be open to the fact that your experiences are going to be very different from other people, and don't give them the opportunity to speak and listen, because that's something I feel like in this day and age, we all just want to get everything out there, but sometimes we forget that we need to listen to other points of view. So for me, as an Asian American in the outdoors, my experience is very different than, say, your guys's or anybody else's. Every individual has their own experience, but acknowledge that, because we don't each experience the outdoors the same way. We are going to have reservations or even some bad experiences out there. I think just being aware of that is the first step, as opposed to just saying, oh no, everybody's open-minded and really nice on trail. And for the most part, they are. But it's not always like that. So I think the first thing is acknowledging that there is a lack of diversity. I'm not saying it's up to you to solve it. It's just know that it's out, that it's happening. Secondly, if you want to find organizations, the internet is a great place. I don't know every organization, but there are people, say, on Instagram as well, organizations that I've volunteered with. For anybody, wherever they are, there's probably going to be a YWCA around, which I think is a great organization because they do a lot of work with diversity, promoting, empowering as well. So that's one organization I'm donating to, the funds that we've raised. I'll be posting more about that. So I guess this will transition into me giving you my social media, which is at Hiking Prodigy on Instagram. I do have a Facebook page too, but most everything is coming from my Instagram. Have a website that I said I was going to build a year ago. So I guess I'm still building it, which would be hikingprodigy.com. And working on a YouTube channel because people have been asking about it. I think that can be a good platform as well to kind of share more for folks to kind of see what we're talking about as opposed to just hearing us. Though I do love podcasts, and you guys for invite.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for joining
thank
us and talking with us. Really appreciate it. But if we have one more minute of your time, can you just share with us a poop story?
Gosh,
best poop story,
many.
worst poop story, best poop story, doesn't matter.
Okay, I got one right now. So Syed Valley, which is the last town before you get to Oregon, if you're going north. We got there before the we got there right after the restaurant closed, like literally about 20 minutes after it closed. This is a bummer because at that point, the only hot food you get is at the store, which is microwavable stuff, which isn't the worst thing in the world. But I was so hungry, I bought 3 of the mega-sized burritos, which I kind of knew what I was looking for the next morning, but it was just like, you know what? I'm staying at the campground tonight. I should be fine. Well, I for one actually enjoy pooping outdoors a lot more than I do bathroom, in the sense that I feel like it's very healthy for you, because gravity's doing the work. But I also like clean restroom. Needless to say, I did my thing in the morning, but kind of knew like that wasn't everything. Let's see how this goes, because for anybody that's hiked that section, it's uphill for a few through Poison Oak and Burn. So there's not a lot to wipe with. Firstly, I use natural material, carry toilet paper. And secondly, you're on the side of a mountain, so not a lot of great places to dig. Well, got about a mile up, and that's when I kind of felt it. I was like, oh, crap. Literally, this is not good. There's poison oak everywhere. Well, needless to say, I dropped my pack as fast as I could and did my best to shimmy around all the poison oak until I got to a spot. I will say it was not 200 feet off the trail. And
it happens, man.
Yeah, and that was not the best wiping experience, we'll put it that way. With the natural materials on hand. I did not use poison oak, thank goodness, but there were definitely some rocks involved, and
oh man.
Yeah. So when I got to Ashland, the shower was important, as they usually are. But I definitely had my worries, like, what if poison oak touched that rock? Oh, crap. Maybe this is it for me. Because then you got to go to the doctor and explain, yeah, so this is what happened. Just how do you want to treat me? Luckily, it didn't happen, but fair warning to anybody going northbound and decides to buy 3 mega burritos. Maybe buy 1, maybe don't buy any.
Maybe 2.
Yeah,
I will
1.5.
Take note of that on my upcoming trek, because I will be going right through there.
Yeah, I will say though, go to the restaurant before they close, because their shakes, Amazing.
Will do, my friend. Will do. All
Well, that
right.
is
Well, Gary, is there anything else you want to add?
other than thank you again very much for sharing your time with us this evening. It was a real pleasure meeting you and hanging out.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks, guys. Glad.
Thanks a
Yeah.
lot, brother.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Oh man,
All right.
how epic is that? I can't even fathom, man. A calendar year triple. Ugh. I don't know if I could. Like mileage wise, I don't even know if I could pull that off. I mean, those are some huge miles.
Oh, for sure. I'm 5 years into my Triple Crown, and I've only done one trail.
I know, right? Yeah, I'm like 1.5 deep. I'm gonna like finish my second this year, or second leg of it anyway.
I'm still trying to recover from the dumb things I did on the first one.
Yeah. Hopefully this time around my pack's not gonna be, 50 whatever pounds like it was when I was on the AT.
I can't even imagine.
Oh man.
Yeah, so we still have a really full list of questions and story prompts that we can save for any other time. When we're not sure who our guest is going to be, but man, we really looked out. I'm glad that he was able to make it. I'm glad that all of you guys were able to make it too, because you guys make this fun, and as long as you keep showing up, we will too. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to like announce or like do any housekeeping stuff. We just dropped an episode yesterday, and I think our editing queue is about 4 shows deep right now. So the one that's going to come out this weekend, if I'm diligent, will be the one that you and Daniel recorded with Slider, the young lady who carried the trombone up the AT. So,
Oh god, yeah, that was. Oh man,
yeah, that one was really fun to
trombone.
listen to. So that's coming up in a couple of days. We've still got a couple more hiker hangouts, long distance prep schools in the queue. This one will probably be mid-April. We'll see. So that's all I know about that.
Sweet.
And,
yeah, man, sounds good to me.
And what are we doing next week? We're doing the same thing we did this week. We're gonna start thinking about it on Monday. On Tuesday, we're gonna maybe make a plan, and on Wednesday, we're gonna go, oh shit, we have to record tonight.
Yeah, pretty
That's
much. Yeah, I was expecting to hear back from Prodigy a lot sooner, and yeah, he messaged me at like 4 o'clock this afternoon, and he's like, "Yeah, so I think I might be able to make it," and I'm like, "Oh my god!" Like,
Yeah.
it's really down to the final hour there.
Yep, we're gonna work on getting ahead of the curve on that one too. But there's a lot to do, and we all have day jobs, right? We all have real things that we do 9 to 5 in addition to this. Someday this is going to be the thing that we do, but for now we have to fit it into the cracks among our spare time. This will
Amen to that.
Someday this will be our full-time job if people remember to support the show at patreon.com/stories from the trail. Yes, I snuck one in.
Nice plug there.
There we go. Yep.
Oh, that was solid.
Yep. I think Megan's going to be back next week. Fozzie said he'll be back next week. So, we'll have something to talk about for sure. We'll meet and hang out again next week, with or without a guest, because we always have stuff to say.
Do we know? I haven't been paying attention, but has Zach and Chance with the Backpacker Radio, have they put out a show with oh my god, Twerk in the Dirt?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, I'm gonna talk to him this week and see if maybe we could set that up next week, if you'd be on board with that, because I know that he just put out his book, The Hiker Trash Vogue, which was making waves and looked amazing.
I want to talk to you sometime about how you know all of these interesting and amazing people.
Instagram, man. I just see what people are doing. It's that, and I try to follow YouTube. I'm not as good at following YouTube as I am with Instagram, just because it's kind of like, okay, I can just look at a picture and That's that.
Yeah,
Whereas,
if you want to, YouTube's a real time commitment. You can follow 400 people on Instagram. On YouTube, you might have time to subscribe to 8, 9 channels tops.
yeah, it's difficult squeezing them all in there. I mean, and the other thing is just finding people is kind of difficult because of the way that the algorithm works. I mean, if you type in hiking or backpacking, you're probably going to get a bunch of results with like Dixie or Darwin,
Right.
So it's kind of hard to find those like obscure people doing amazing things, So
The same is actually true for the podcasting world as well. There might be some people doing amazing things that are relatively obscure, and the way the algorithm floats some of those more obscure titles to the top is actually by the activity of how often they get new 5-star reviews.
yeah, for sure. So on that note, I would say that anybody listening that has or knows of somebody doing something awesome or amazing or noteworthy or, just has an amazing story in general, reach out to, me or Gary and let us know so we can try to contact those people and get them on the show. Because, granted, we have our own stories, but it's awesome hearing other people doing amazing things, just like, hiking Prodigy or a Prodigy, so please, if you know of anybody, feel free to reach out.
And that's kind of the MO of how the Trek works at its core. If you know the history of the Trek, it started out as Appalachian Trials, which was basically a blogging platform for people, who are on trail. It was a way for people to share their hikes with their friends and family other than Facebook. And that's kind of what our podcasts have become. Zach with his trail correspondence and what we do. Of course, we have our stories. We can talk all day, but like Reptar said, we want to hear your stories. One way that we can also do that is by having people just send in voice memos, either from, if you're out in the middle of a trail somewhere, turn on your, bring your phone onto your pocket if you're alone and, describe to us what you're seeing. Give us a minute or two of, you standing by a waterfall saying something interesting and send that voice memo when you get home as an attachment to send it to the show. That email address, if you think of the name of the show, Stories from the Trail, sfttShow@gmail.com. That's our email address. You send us those clips and we'll get your questions and your stories on the air.
Sounds solid.
I'm starving. I got a cheeseburger waiting for me in the other room.
Oh, man. Well, I don't want you withering it away. So I'll let you get to it, man. But
I'm melting.
Yeah, I think we had a lot of fun today, man. I think it was a good show. And it was really cool hearing about Prodigy and his
good times.
Amazing adventure.
Yeah, I like our little improv at the end, too, where we just happen to plug things that are show stuff, not a conversation. It was very natural. It felt like... it felt good. I think that's gonna play well. Stories from the Trail is a production of thetrek.co. Zach Davis, editor-in-chief. Each episode is recorded in front of a live internet audience. You can be part of that internet audience if you care to join us on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern. There's a link in the show notes that tells you everything you need. Our music is by Lee Rosevere. Your hosts are Green Giant, Voldemort, and Reptar. You can find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all those places. Just look for Stories from the Trail. It's probably us. The show is recorded, mixed, and edited by me, Gary Sizer, in Blanket Fort Studios, which is just me in my basement with a blanket over my head. Thanks for listening.
Holy crap, man.
Oh, man.
Yeah. That's
Oh,
ugh. Oh
Yeah.
man,